Hello viewers, welcome to Study with Master Notes. How are you all? Hope all you are fine. I am very much thankful to all my viewers that all are watching my videos without interrupting from first to the last of the video. So I am very happy you are liking, sharing and subscribing my channel. So thank you viewers. So please like, share and subscribe this channel so that you will get more notification about upcoming exams and all your key points and keynotes in the IGNOU material. Okay, so we will go techniques in a portrait of the artist as a young man by James Joyce, which I have already completed. That is unit 4, page number 4. Already I have completed. So you can go through my previous video so that you will get clarified about my videos. Okay, so techniques, half of the course I have already covered. Okay, so here it is. I will go to repetition or symbolism. What are the repetitions or symbolism? That is technique applied in a portrait of the artist as a young man by James Joyce, which I will describe. Okay, so what is a repetition? So as repetition means, you already know, whenever we do any work without interrupting the work by one after another, the same work repeatedly we are doing. So that is called repetition. So simultaneously here it's a repetition word is there. So see, repetition is a stylistic and structural device is used by most modernist writers. Okay, so repetition as a stylistic and structural device is used by most modernist writers. So James Joyce is also a modernist writer. A portrait also uses it quite effectively. It offers endless difference in sameness and reminds us of the ways in which variety can be organized around some governing preoccupations. At the same time, we should keep this in mind that the function of the repetition of image, symbol and motif in a portrait is most of the time only suggestive, not definitive. Okay, so here it is, the symbol motif in a portrait is most of the time only suggestive, not definitive. The use of some of the key motifs in the very first section of the novel thus has in it as much of fluidity as fixity of connotation. This fluidity then embraces the whole novel. Okay, so here it is, the flexibility inside the novel. This fluidity then embraces the whole novel. Birds, water and colors are chief among the symbols that Joyce has woven into the structure and texture of a portrait. So here you can see some physical features are there which James Joyce used in a portrait: the birds, water and colors, chief among the symbols that Joyce has woven into the structure and texture of a poet. First, let us look at water. Association of wet and dry are there right at the start in the bedwetting episode. The bog water with which the water of the square ditch into which Wells pushes Stephen comes to be associated as a way of returning to Stephen's consciousness. So here you can see what imagery or symbol of water James Joyce used in this novel. Associations of wet and dry. The right at the start in the bedwetting episode. The bow water with which water of the square ditch into which Wells pushes Stephen comes to be associated as a way of returning to Stephen's consciousness. It doesn't only as associated, it doesn't only as watery tea, but as the squalor of the kitchen at home and as the tough colored bath water. Okay, so it doesn't only as watery tea, but as the squalor of the kitchen at home and as the tough colored bath water. And yet the same water comes to have very different and liberating connotations for him in the episode relating to the wedding girl. Moving now to colors. We find the first colors of infant awareness, the green Ireland and Parnell and the red of the family hearth are both joined in the ivy and holly of the Christmas dinner, then go onto the bed or to be reflected in the colors of the seaweeds through which Stephen weds. So what are the colors we can find inside the novel? Here it is the moving now to colors. We find the first colors of the infant awareness, the green Ireland and panel and the red of the family hearth are both joined in the ivy and holly of the Christmas dinner and then go on to be reflected in the colors of the seaweeds through which Stephen weds. The wedding girl's colors are also significant. Thighs of ivory, dress of blue and white. Okay. So what is the wedding girl's colors? The wedding girl's colors are also significant. Thighs of ivory, dress of blue and white, and hair of gold. Okay. So thighs of ivory, dress of blue and white, and hair of gold. Interestingly, ivory and white also tie off with Ellen's hands. Finally, there is the symbolism associated with birds. It starts with the eagles that will pull out the infant Stephen's eyes. Then there are the talons of the young Jesuit prefect Mr. Glisson. Okay. Then there are the talons of the young Jesuit prefect Mr. Glisson. So Mr. Glisson is a character inside the novel. Okay. So young Jesuit prefect Mr. Glisson. So then there are the talons of the young Jesuit prefect Mr. Glisson. The bird image later comes to be associated with flight, liberation and transcendence. So birds means you already know independence, that is liberation, transcendence, that is flight. First there is the figure of Icarus rising above the waters, or you can say Icarus rising above the waters. Still more significant is the wedding girl, who is envisioned as having been transformed into a sea bird with the delicate legs of a crane standing in the water as if poised for flight. So girl is envisioned as having been transformed into a sea bird with the delicate legs of crane standing in the water as if poised for flight. Her bosom is like the plumage of a dove. Okay. So her bosom is like the plumage of a dove. So still the significance of the wedding girl who is envisioned as having been transformed into a sea bird. So what imagery James Joyce used in this novel as a bird, that is the wedding girl into a sea bird, as the delicate legs of a crane standing in the water as if poised for flight. Along with the chief symbol, two more things have symbolic significance. These are flowers and roads. Both play an important role in Stephen's mental makeup and baggage. The road symbolism in the novel is complex. The association of roads are tied up with walks and wandering. There are also a part of topography of Dublin in actually and as part of Stephen's internal landscape. Samuel Beckett once warned readers against the danger of excessive neatness of identification, where Joyce's use of symbols was concerned. So Samuel Beckett once warned readers against the danger of excessive neatness of the identification, where Joyce's use of symbols was concerned. You would do well to keep in mind the fact that Joyce mostly keeps his symbolism in a fluid state, so that the connotations keep changing most of the time. So here it is a main key point. Samuel Beckett once told that there is a danger of excessive neatness of identification, where Joyce's use of symbol was concerned, and in the mind the fact that Joyce mostly keeps his symbolism in a fluid state. So here it is the main key point, you can note down in your diary. Then we will go stream of consciousness and epiphany. Here it is the main main point which I will discuss, that is stream of consciousness and epiphany. Okay, some indication of the implications of the term stream of consciousness has already been given to you by equating it, roughly speaking, with a train of thought. The method is in evidence at many places in a portrait, more so in the opening and the closing pages of the novel. Okay, some indication of the implication of the term stream of consciousness has already been given to you by equating it with a train of thought. The method is in evidence at many places in a portrait, more so in the opening and closing pages of the novel. That is a train of thought. The method is in evidence at many places in a portrait, more so in the opening and the closing pages of the novel. The emphasis in the stream of consciousness method is on the psychic being of the characters, and the associative mode is kept in the forefront of Stephen's consciousness. Okay, so here it is the emphasis that is the stream of consciousness method is on the psychic being of characters and the associative mode, which is kept in the forefront of Stephen's consciousness. This is the heart of the novel, as it is both in subject matter and is the major structuring mechanism. So stream of consciousness is the heart of the novel. Okay, this is the heart of the novel, as it is both the subject matter and the major structural mechanism. In the opening and the closing pages, the inner aspect of the consciousness is on view. In the opening and the closing pages, the inner aspects of the consciousness is on view. At the start, the reader is tossed back and forth through sudden disruptions. The story of the macaw is linked in Stephen's consciousness with Byron's Sweetshop. The story of the macaw is linked in Stephen's consciousness with Byron's Sweetshop. A memory of his father leads to memory of his mother. Associations led us to alien. The coldness of the bed and its wetness are all part of associative process, as are the smells exuded by Stephen's parents. Another good example of the method is when Stephen is on the football field. He is in the midst of a scrimmage and is thinking of going home for the holidays. He longs for the warmth of the room where he has wasted at his desk the number of days still remaining between then and the holidays. His thoughts on the field move in quick succession from his cold hands to the various meanings of the word belt, to nasty expression used by the boys, to his mother's warning not to speak to the rough boys, and so on. The way associative processes are placed into the service of the weaving together of recurrent motifs is quite obvious in the episode related to Wells and the discomfiture it causes every time it comes back to Stephen. He shivered as if he had cold slimy water next to his skin. That was mean of Wells to shoulder him into the square ditch. How cold and slimy the water has been! The motive of wetness and coldness stays with him. He felt his forehead warm and damp against the prefect's cold, damp hand. That was the way a rat felt slimy and damp and cold. That is page number 19 to 20. There are many other examples in the text where associative processes are at work. You should look at them and see how they tie up with Joyce's overall technique. You will find that Joyce mostly sticks to a kind of realist, naturalist style with symbolic motifs interwoven into the narrative. So here James Joyce's writing is very clear, and James Joyce's writing was a realist, naturalist style. In the first and last pages of the technique is more or less exclusively stream of consciousness. The diary jottings at the end are synthetically much closer to the style of Ulysses. Due to their being more fragmentary in the opening pages, the train of thought is expressed in complete sentences and regular syntax. That is, train of thought is expressed in complete sentences and regular syntax. Let us now look at the role of epiphany in a portrait. Here is a very important point. What do you mean by epiphany? The concept of epiphany is basic to the appearance of Joyce's general approach in a portrait. So it is the Joyce's general approach in a portrait. By an epiphany, Joyce meant a sudden spiritual manifestation or showing forth. Okay, so the Joyce's general approach in a portrait by an epiphany. Joyce meant a certain spiritual manifestation or showing forth. With some stretching of the connotation of the word, it is possible to see a portrait, as many critics have done, as incorporating a sequence of related epiphanies in the form of a forward moving narrative. The showing forth that Joyce had in mind was the reality, the wordness of an object, person, and event. The estuary epiphany is the most notable example of the kind of showing forth that Joyce had in mind. What happens here is that Stephen, in a flash of insight, recognizes the call of his artistic vocation, transfigured into the form of the wedding girl, who becomes for him the embodiment of art and beauty. The estuary epiphany is the most notable example of the kind of showing forth that Joyce had in mind. What happens here is that Stephen, in a flash insight, recognizes the call of his artistic vocation, transfigured into the form of the wedding girl, who becomes for him the embodiment of art and beauty. Artistic vocation transfigured into the form of wedding girl, who becomes for him the embodiment of art and beauty. The second thing to note is that another aspect of epiphany, the joy or the sense of enlightenment it creates, is conveyed to us in the wild transport of delight experienced by Stephen at the sight of the girl. The two aspects have a way of reinforcing each other. They resonate and bring the fourth chapter to its rapturous climax. The interview with the Jesuit director also has in it strong elements of epiphany. That episode needs to be seen in its totality, its before and after included, to realize its epiphanic status. That episode needs to be seen in the totality, its before and after included, to realize its epiphanic status. Then we will go linguistic features. To the extent of Joyce's style in a portrait retains naturalistic tendency, it tends to be with this linguistic thrust is that there is a preponderance of type structures of modification, adjectives, adverbs, adjective phrasal phrases, adverbial phrases, adjective clauses, adverb clauses occurring both in pre-head and post-head positions. The aim is to give us as exact a description as possible. Three examples of varying length will illustrate the linguistic tendency. The first is the sad, quiet grey blue of the dying day came through the window, and the open door covering over and allaying quietly a sudden instinct of remorse in Stephen's heart. That is page 176. Here you can see the sad, quiet grey blue of the dying day came through the window. Okay, so here it is a dying day. So dying day defined by a sad, quiet grey blue of the dying day. Okay, so here is the more adjective clause are used. Come through the window and the open door covering over and allaying quietly a sudden instinct of remorse in the Stephen's heart. The second example is near the hoardings on the canal he met the consumptive man. So what type of man he met? A consumptive man. So here it is the adjective. With the doll's face and the brimless hat coming. Okay, here it is the brimless hat. What type of hat he used? Brimless hat. Coming towards him down the slope of the breeze with the little steps tightly buttoned. What type of buttoned? Tightly buttoned into his chocolate overcoat and holding his fold umbrella a span or two from him like a diving rod. Page number 191. Again I am reading. Near the hoardings on the canal he made the consumptive man with the doll's face and the brimless hat coming towards him down the slope of the breeze with little steps tightly buttoned into his chocolate overcoat and holding his fold umbrella a span or two from him like a diving rod. The third example is he passed unchallenged among the ducks and along the quays, wondering at the multitude of corks that lay wobbling on the surface of the water, in a thick yellow scum at the crowds of quay porters and the rumbling carts and the ill-dressed bearded policemen. Here you can see the adjective ill-dressed bearded policeman. Ill-dressed bearded policeman. What type of policeman? Ill-dressed bearded policeman. And is the water in a thick yellow scum. Water in a thick yellow scum at the crowds of quay porters and the rumbling carts. What type of carts? That is rumbling carts. Dogs along the quays wandering. Quays wandering, here it is the adverbial clause, that is quays wandering, and passed unchallenged among the ducks as a multitude of cocks and lay wobbling on the surface of the water. In the first example, the word blow is modified by three adjectives sad, quiet and grey. Already I have discussed, and the verb came through is modified by the participle phrase covering over and allaying quietly a sudden instinct of remorse. In the second example, the noun phrase consumptive man is modified by with the doll's face and the brimless hat, and the whole phrase taken together is tied up to the participle phrase coming towards him down the slope of the breeze with little steps. This modified structure is further modified by tightly buttoned into his chocolate overcoat and holding his furled umbrella a span or two from him like a diving rod. In the third example, the verb past is modified first by unchallenged among the ducks and along the quays, and further by wondering at the multitude of cocks. The cocks themselves are further modified by that lay wobbling on the surface of the water in a thick yellow scum. Means scrupulousness is the expression which is the quite appropriate for this kind of nagging accuracy, and this accuracy works very well in the service of the modernist preoccupation with city life, with concretion and with immediacy and complexity. Then we will go, let us sum up. As with other great modernist technique is an extremely significant part of Joyce's novelistic art, and most technical devices are there toward novelty as well as accuracy to the presentation. The variety of styles in the novel is extraordinary, and each change of style conforms to some stage in Stephen's growth. Stream of consciousness is used less extensively here than in Ulysses. Okay. So stream of consciousness is used less extensively here than in Ulysses. The variety of styles in the novel is extraordinary, and each change of style conforms to some stage in Stephen's growth. And epiphany is used in remarkable effect. Tight structures of modification mark the syntax of the novel at most places. So here it is a main key point. You can note down tight structures of modification mark the syntax of novel at most places. Here it is the question: what kind of style does Joyce use to convey the workings of Stephen's mind as an infant in the opening pages of a portrait? What do you understand by the term stream of consciousness? Write a short note on associative processes in a portrait in terms of random working memory leading from one thought of impression to another. How does the use of tight structures of modification help Joyce in giving textual density to his style in a portrait? Give at least one example of epiphany from a portrait. Here is the suggesting reading. A good introductory book on matters related to the technique of a portrait is Christopher Hanson's A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, Oxford, Basil Blackwell, 1969. You will find Patrick Parinder's book James Joyce quite useful in the matter of shifts and variety of styles. Anthony Burgess' extensive writings on Joyce are useful in the matter of throwing light on Joyce's linguistic virtuosity. His 1980 book Joyce Pick is quite helpful. Okay, so here it is all about technique of a portrait. A portrait of the young man a portrait of the artist as a young man by James Joyce. So already I have discussed all the things. So you will see the videos from first to end without interrupting and note down all the key points, and like, share and subscribe my channel to get more new things and more new key points inside the material. So thank you viewers.